Bimonthly morning discussion session. Commissioner Martin and Commissioner Woodbury will be participating remotely. We have two items for discussion today. One is our capital projects update. James Anderson, Chris Weevil, Mark Davison, Kyle Haney, and Courtney Driver will give us some reports. Our second one is the Exxon video recording and surveillance update, and the Forsyth County Sheriff's Department will be giving us that update. So welcome to everyone, and at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to our manager.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning, commissioners and guests and those that are viewing this. So the thought process here really was we have a lot of capital projects that are underway, and y'all as a board, y'all have seen parts of it kind of as they've come through agenda items. What we wanted to do is give a pretty expansive overview of what staff's working on across all these departments. Construction administration for most projects is really housed in general services, but Parks manages some of their projects. Mark Davidson in the airport manages and works with general services on his. Kyle Haney's working on economic development projects, and then Courtney obviously has a expansive list of projects that the Utility Commission works on. And so what we thought would be helpful is really just sort of project kind of what you're going to be seeing over the next coming meetings. When you look at the scheduling of projects, we've got projects that will be scheduled out into FY26, but that are currently funded and that we're working on. So we thought that would be helpful. On the Sheriff's Department contract with Axon, that is a contract that was awarded 2017, 2018. It's coming up for renewal. There's been some technology changes. There have been other vendors that have entered the marketplace. There's one part of the contract, it comes up in June or July, part of it's in September, but we wanted to make sure we got some input from the board around that because the technology that the Sheriff's Department has integrated, as you know, he has integrated a lot of technology into what he does, and we just thought it would be helpful to hear a presentation from them about how important it is to them and sort of their strategy for moving forward, because in that world, different vendors provide different kinds of services. And so anyway, they've done a great job at putting a presentation together, and we'll get some input on that. So and Madam Vice Chair, if you want to take a break, between presentations, we can certainly do that as well. When we got through with the capital projects presentation, it was 70 slides.
We'll take a break.
Yeah, and so there's a lot, and so I'll go ahead and we know if we spend 3 minutes on those, then we're into our 2 o'clock session probably. So, but we'll get on through it. But we also want to make sure that we get any input that you have on that. So, with that, I think James is going to kick us off, and he'll pull the slide deck up. You should have a hard copy of it in front of you if you need that and take any notes. And obviously, this is your session. Stop us if you want clarification or have comments or want to interject anything at all. So, James, thanks for all your work. When you get through with it, you'll realize that a very small staff has a lot going on, and they do a fantastic job. So.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair and Commissioners. Appreciate the time to come before you this morning to talk about our projects. So currently, the Construction Management Division is overseeing 23 projects that are either in the planning, design, construction, or closeout phases. 12 of those are capital improvement projects, 5 capital renewal projects, 4 special projects, and 2 ARPA projects. The total of those projects is about $225 million, with individual project budgets ranging from $100,000 to $106 million, with anticipated completion dates extending into 2025. So this shows an overview of our capital renewal plan projects that we have in process right now. We have 3 roof projects and then 2 projects over at the Law Enforcement Detention Center. So the re-roofing projects, we have the DSS re-roofing. REI Engineers was selected to provide design services for the project, and we anticipate bidding that in the first quarter of 2024, and we'll be bringing an item to the board for the construction of that. And we have budgeted $2 million for the roof replacement. At Walkertown Library, Atlas Engineering has been selected to provide design services for the project, and we also anticipate bidding that in the first quarter of 2024 with a budget of $450,000. And then at our youth detention facility, we have a design completed by Wolf Trail Engineering, and that's currently out to bid, and anticipate bringing an item to the board later this year for that.
I'm sorry, I just want to be clear, you're talking about calendar quarters, not fiscal.
Calendar quarters, yes, sir.
Let me just mention on the youth detention project, as you know, that we lease that facility to the state of North Carolina. The state of North Carolina has a contract with Methodist Home for Children actually to run an assessment center in there. They are really responsible for the maintenance of the building, the roof and the bigger parts of the building really are our responsibility. And this will, obviously a roof's a critical element to a building being healthy. And so, this project will extend the life of that and support the project. But it's not, we are not running a detention operation there, it's the state.
All right. Then over at the Law Enforcement Detention Center, we have in process the elevator modernization project. ARC Studio 7 is proposed to be selected to provide design services, and I'll be bringing that item today in the briefing. And the project includes the modernization of 8 elevators and 2 dumbwaiters, and we've budgeted $2.5 million for the actual modernization work, and then $250,000 for the design pieces coming from 2/3 bonds. And then we are currently out to bid on the lock replacement project. We held the pre-bid meeting yesterday, had a number of firms that were on site for that pre-bid, and seemed like there's really good interest in that project. And we're proposing to use courthouse project savings to pay for that replacement, and we're anticipating that to be around $2 million. And so we are continuing to have some challenges with our CRP program. One is the post-COVID construction market. Costs have doubled and tripled depending on the market segment. Example of that, before COVID, we were doing roofing projects for about $15 a square foot. Now we're seeing up to $45 a square foot for a similar type project. And then material lead times continue to be problematic for HVAC and electrical systems. We're seeing anywhere from 6 to 12-month lead time depending on the type of equipment. And so, that gives me a little bit of pause for where we're having so much of our buildings with deferred maintenance that if we have a critical piece fail, then we're going to have a significant amount of time before we can get that replaced, just by the nature of the lead time of the equipment. And then the Law Enforcement Detention Center continues to be a strain on our funding. Right now, for the current year, we have deferred needs and current needs of $12.7 million. And then prior to COVID, we were projecting a $15 million budget gap over 10 years. After updating for current pricing, we're looking at about a $36 million funding gap over 10 years. And as we're continuing to progress, the building needs are being compressed down as we're deferring things out further. So this current year, we have $29 million in deferred and planned needs, and our overall 10-year needs are $48 million. So we're approaching well over half of our current needs are are right now, and we just don't have the funding for it. And then on our capital improvement plan projects, so we have a number of projects that are in process. You'll see on here there are some airport projects. Mark's going to talk about those. And so probably the one that I'm most excited about is the new courthouse. We completed the move-in last week and went live on Monday morning with courts. Knock on wood, so far has not had any major hiccups or issues with the building, and it seems like the public and staff are really enjoying being in the new space.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then out at Fleet, we're working on the expansion project there to co-locate the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools fleet maintenance with our fleet maintenance. And so the project's about a 3,000 square foot addition, and we're currently in construction with that now with Dreambuilt and anticipate completing that early next year. And then up at Callidium, this project is nearing completion. Frank L. Bloom is right at the substantial completion phase, and the museum has begun moving in their exhibits. The building is looking fantastic. It's incredible to see the transition from a shell building without exhibits to how it looks now with the exhibits going in. I think the public and the folks that's going to use that facility are just going to be really in awe of how it's turning out. And then things are on track there to still have an opening first quarter of 2024. And there's been proposal of a February ribbon cutting for that. So we'll be continuing to finalize the date for that and be bringing that to the board. And then over at the health campus, we're working on a project for DSS and public health. At DSS, we're renovating the first floor to expand the public waiting area and also to convert a former file room into client meeting spaces for DSS and WIC. And then the public health scope and the budget, we're going to be bringing that back to the board once we have a completed schematic design and cost estimate from Norwood Architecture. And then another one that I'm really excited about, and that's the Ballous Lake Park project. We're nearing the end of that one. There's been some material lead time delays that have slowed things down a little bit, but Bar Construction is still proposing to be completed ahead of their contractual date. Later this year, the shelter and the comfort station and the fishing docks will be coming in. And so hopefully early January or February, we'll be also having a ribbon cutting for a new park. Then up at Horizons Park, we're working on a project to reactivate the former administration building. And so the project's going to include a new roof, new HVAC systems, interior finishes, and ADA updates. Currently, we have $1 million budgeted for that project, and we're working with McKissick Architects to design that. And then at the Public Safety Center, we're nearing completion of the first phase of the reorganization project. And so that is to move the Sheriff's Administration Suite from the second floor to the third floor. And then that'll open up their existing space on the second floor for WSPD to move in their communications center, and then also allows for expansion of the emergency management into a larger staff office area. And then there's also some unallocated space currently that can be looked at for future growth for either the PD, the sheriff, or for emergency management. And then our agricultural park project that we're working on up in Tobaccoville area, Shelco is deep into the design development phase of that project now and should be having a completed design nearing the end of this year, and then we'll be having that going out to bid. And I think one of the exciting things for me with this project now is the funding that we got from the state that is really going to help our budget, and I think will really let us get into something substantial for this first phase. And then out at Tanglewood for the clubhouse project, we've been working on this one for a while, working with Samet to VE the project, and so they've come back to us now with two GMP options. There's the high option, which is $16.4 million, and then the one that takes a more substantial reduction to the facility, $14.9 million. So in the first option, it'll still maintain cart storage beneath the building, and so that'll, by nature of having the storage underneath, will have the building elevated, which provides a more impressive view as you're coming up from the 18th green for the elevated back porch and event space. For that, we're looking at right now about a $4.7 million revenue gap. And then for the second option, it would remove the cart storage from underneath the building, and that would move down the hill to the parking lot just across from where the train is sitting. And so that's going to present some challenges in that there's going to be higher operating expenses for staff to stage carts. And then also there's going to be, the building's going to look a little less impressive as you're coming up from the 18th green because it cuts off a lot of the patio and porch area and really brings it down to more of just like a patio on grade. And then for our ARPA projects, we're working on 2 with Chantel and Denise Price. And so the first is the Highland Avenue Center project, and we're working with IL Long as the design builder for that project. They are currently bidding out the trade packages, and I hope to have a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price, from them today so that I can get an agenda item together for the November board meeting. And then the project includes renovating space on the first floor for a behavioral health crisis center, and then upfit of shell space on the second floor for provider offices, counseling rooms, stepping up, and behavioral health department offices. And we have a budget of $1.9 million for that project. And then over at Annex 1, we're working with Peterson Gordon to design a renovation of the auditorium there. It's really going to be mainly focused on finishes, updates, and then some interior lighting and accessibility improvements. And we have currently $400,000 budgeted for that project. And then we have 4 special projects that are in the works right now. Out at Tanglewood, we're looking at doing a solar photovoltaic system on the maintenance facility. And we're working now to get a fee proposal from Renew Energy Solutions to design and build that project for us. And so I hope to be bringing a design agreement to the board soon for that. And then they seemed really excited about the project and working with us on that one. And then also we're working on a project for fleet electrification. And so the first phase of that project will be to install charging stations here at the government center and also out at the health services campus. And that one, we're kind of TBD on the budget right now while we're waiting to get feedback from the engineer on what the potential cost will look like. We do know that for both sites, we're going to have to coordinate with Duke Energy to add a new electric service that'll be dedicated to those charging stations. There's not sufficient capacity at either facility to pull it out of existing switchgear. And then we're also working on a project at the Sturmer House. So there's been a need identified to reactivate that facility. And so we worked with Stitch Design to do a thorough code review to identify any needs that need to be addressed to meet licensure requirements. And so we have sent the bid documents over to City County Purchasing, and we'll be getting that bid out here soon and hope to be bringing a project back to the board for that. And then the last thing that we're working on is the demolition of the former CMEX site. And so we're routing the contract with LBD Construction Services that was approved at the October 5th meeting, and hope to have them started on that project as soon as we get the environmental management program completed. And then just an overview of all of our projects in one Gantt chart here. So you can see we've got quite a bit going on, and towards the end of 2024 and into 2025, we'll see some things rolling off and have capacity to take on additional projects. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have about our project.
Are there questions?
Thank you.
Seriously? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so what we'll do, we'll kind of wrap up at the very end. I'll talk a little bit about next steps. I mean, obviously, we're presenting some budgetary problems, and it's terrible to present a bunch of problems without a solution. And so I'll kind of wrap up with what's next around what we'll be bringing you from a staff perspective. So, but I think parks are next, and so Chris Weevil's going to come up and jump into the park-related projects.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners,
Good morning,
staff.
Chris.
Thank you all for the opportunity today. Would like to just start off and say it's been great collaborating with General Services, construction management staff. They've helped me, I've helped them, so it's been a great time working with those folks. I just wanted to pass that along as we get started. This morning, I just kind of go over our active projects. Don't have quite as many as James, but they're no less important to the county and to the department. We've got 8 projects that are currently in planning or design. We've got 1 general obligation bond project. That's from the 2016 general obligation bond. We've got 1 2/3 bond project, 5 PAYGO projects, and 1 ARPA project. Our current project budgets total approximately $6.4 million. We've got individual project budgets that range from $175,000 to $1.4 million. And we do have anticipated project completion dates that extend into 2026. On the screen in front of you, again, is the chart kind of showing the list of projects I just went through, and showing that we do kind of go out into the 2026, and those are calendar year quarters again. First project I want to cover for you today is the Highland Avenue Park, an exciting little project that we've got going on. It'll be at the corner of Highland Avenue and 5th Street. This is an ARPA-funded project, $1.4 million. FL Bloom is our design build contractor. They are currently in design. Might not be very easy to see, but that is a sketch plan that we've got done for the particular project. Things may change off of that. The picture in the left-hand corner kind of shows you the open lot that is currently existing at the corner of 5th and Highland Avenue. Basically a 1-acre lot. We'll be, in our project scope, we'll be including a handicap accessible playground, small shelter, some open space, some game and picnic tables, and a small sports court. We do estimate completion of this at the end of 2024, barring no hiccups or delays. What do I do? I figured something there. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can, thank you. All right. Next project is our, but our next project is the Horizons Park Multimodal Trails. This is going on the northern section of Horizons Park, on the north side of Horizons Memorial Industrial School Road, just behind the Horizons Residential Complex. The designer for this is Jordan Consultants. This is a design bid build project. We have an estimated completion of somewhere in mid-2025. We're currently in design. This is a first draft design that we've got that I've showed you here on the picture that you see. I've got several different loops. We're looking to have about 8 miles of multimodal trails on the approximately 175 to 180 acres on that northern side of Memorial Industrial School Road. The trails will be designed mainly for equestrian and pedestrian users. The total budget here is $750,000, and this is one of our 2016 general obligation bond projects.
Chris, if you can, just use your cursor and show the board what's currently there on site, so to distinguish that.
See the, I guess they're orange and fairly narrow little trails here. Those are current mountain bike trails that we've got there. Just to the south of that is our dog park and our parking area. And then the green buildings you see over here, basically the Horizons residential location that we've got that's there right now. So those are the only developed parts on that really side of the Memorial Industrial School Road, that side of the park. Basically, it is 180 to 190 acres of, just basically forested woodlands. One thing I would like to mention is that particular section, several acres of that have already been logged through our forest management program, forest stewardship program. So that will definitely help with the construction as we go through of the trails on this particular section. So.
Thanks.
Our next project is the Tanglewood Park Shelter 4 Playground Replacement. This again is being designed by Jordan Consultants. It's a design bid build project. This is to replace the Shelter 4 at Tanglewood Park. The playground there is 25 years old. The manufacturer is out of business. We can't get parts, pieces, anything like that to repair or replace what we've got. This is a 10,000 square foot playground. It is our largest playground in our system and arguably the most heavily used. The project will provide us some play structures for 2 to 5 year olds and 5 to 12 year olds. We estimate completion for this somewhere in the Q4 of 2025. It may be a little longer than that. Lead times on playground equipment right now are pretty far out, so we're just kind of estimating that completion date. So it may fluctuate, but currently we are in design with that. We've got a total budget of about $570,000, and that is a 2022 third bond project. As James mentioned, one of his favorite projects and one of my favorite projects we've got going on right now is Blues Lake Park. We're working towards Blues Lake Park Phase 2 development. Right now, we're basically just in planning for that. We don't have any, contractors, anything like that, any designs chosen. But currently, Blues Lake Park, we bought that particular piece of property. It's 216 acres in size. We have approximately 10,000 linear feet of lake frontage. The first phase development is taking up about 22 acres of the park, and I'll kind of with my cursor show you right now. We've got a main entrance, the roadway heading to the south, and the section where you can see my cursor moving here is the section that we're building right now. Phase 2 would actually start basically in the middle of Phase 1 and head to the east and stop at about this portion. We're anticipating 3, possibly 4 phases, but Phase 2 would be basically right in the center of the park property. It would entail about another 20 acres of development, including some additional site work, another 200-person picnic shelter, comfort station, playground, and one of the highlights of this particular phase would be a 7,000 linear foot paved multi-use walking trail, along with some other unimproved trails additions that we'll put in there. Again, we're in planning for that. We've got a budget of $2.5 million, and that's a 2023 PAYGO project.
So, so he's listing a few projects that were on the list when you adopted the budget in June, and it identified projects that if sufficient funds were available from PAYGO when we close out that year, that would be available. So I think you got 2 or 3 projects that sort of meet that criteria, but we did want to go ahead and talk about them.
The next 3 projects I've got are also out of that pot of money, the 2023 PAYGO, if we have sufficient funds that we'll be able to do. So the next project is the Tanglewood Park Campground Assessment and Expansion. Our Tanglewood Campground is one of our more successful and more popular enterprise areas that we've got within the department. It is located at Tanglewood Park. We have 44 reservable sites. We have 47 total sites. 3 of those sites are set up for our campground hosts, and they basically, their host, they rotate through a week and help our campers that come in, excuse me, get situated and get set. Our campgrounds open annually from April 1st to December 1st. We generate approximately $350,000 in revenues there annually. The 5-year average occupancy rate for weekdays is 65%, and for weekends it is 86%. The 5-year overall total occupancy rate is 79% for our 275-day operational season. So while we're talking about this, our frequent comment that we get from customers is the lack of available sites to rent. So we're looking to do an assessment on possible expansion there. Again, this is a 2023 PAYGO project. Again, we're just in the very basics, initial stages of planning. We had a budget set aside for that for $750,000. And this is one of the projects that would more than likely, if funding's available, push out into 2026. Another project for that 2023 PAYGO was the Tanglewood Park Wetlands Overlook. The wetlands area is a section approximately probably 100 yards from the Yadkin River on the southeastern or southwestern corner of Tanglewood Park. Local nature enthusiasts and the Forsyth Audubon Society have advocated for this particular item to go in this particular area. It'll allow viewing of the wetland area at Tanglewood. It's located along the Yadkin River Nature Trail, which is a trail, interactive trail that we have through this area at Tanglewood. The accessible platform, along with some accessible parking, will allow for opportunities for a greater number of folks or visitors to observe the Yadkin River Nature Trail and its diverse plant and wildlife species that are located in that particular area. Again, initial stages of planning. We've got a $175,000 budget. Again, 2023 pay-go and another project that would push out into probably 2026. The last project we've got here in the 2023 pay-go is the Tanglewood Park Festival of Lights displays. Tanglewood Park, this will be our 32nd season of operation. Over that period, this manufacturing, technology, and cost of our displays have risen significantly. Customer surveys and input indicate that new and interesting displays are greatly desired for the park, especially for repeat users. Park staff are researching innovative ways that use more modern technology to enhance the upcoming light shows. So the Festival of Lights 5-year averages for vehicles is roughly 54,000 vehicles with a total revenue of just over $1 million annually. Again, we're in planning for this. We're working with some of our vendors to look and see what is available, what we can do. We've got a total budget of $250,000, and we estimate hoping to have something last quarter of 2025, again, barring any supply chain delays. And lastly, we wanted to go over, just kind of show you a couple of the completed projects that we've got from the 2016 general obligation bond projects. As you know, we've renovated the Tanglewood Park Golf Course. That was 2019 completion, $3.25 million in total funds spent there. The community parks playground replacements, we replaced 6 playgrounds, actually 7 playgrounds in the community parks for $849,000. We completed that in 2020. The Tanglewood Park Special Event Roadway improvements has been a huge benefit for the Festival of Lights and our special events at Tanglewood. It was $1.3 million completed in 2020. And then the multi-use trail additions at Tanglewood completed in 2021, and that was $970,000. And those were the 4 big 2016 general obligation bond projects. Some of the 2018, 2020 2/3 bond projects. We had some Festival of Lights displays that we bought for $52,000. Pasture fencing replacements for $31,000, and some road resurfacing for $168,000 that were all completed in 2020. That list is a little bit longer, so it continues on. Manor House kitchen upfits, activity and lap pool replastering, Red Barn renovations, another Festival of Lights display, Joni Moser playground replacement. That was a smaller tot lot that we had that was completely separate from the large playground that we have at Joni Moser. So that was a smaller one, but just kind of pointed that out. And we did resurface the Mallard Lake playground that we have at Tanglewood in anticipation of possibly taking the larger playground at Shelter 4 out of service if we do any construction there. But that was $84,000. And we did a Tanglewood Park IT network hub relocation in anticipation of the clubhouse possible replacements. We've replaced all of our IT gear that was at the clubhouse. We've taken that hub and now placed it in the maintenance center at Tanglewood. So we won't have any interruption in service once we, if we do any work at the clubhouse. And then probably one of the more popular projects we've done recently is the 2021 pay-go project of the Joni Moser Pickleball Complex. And I can report that it is still very heavily used on a daily basis. So any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Are there questions? Commissioner Bessie?
Thank you, ma'am. Let me go back to the Horizons Park multimodal trail.
Thank you.
I have gotten different interpretations on the multi-use trail intended uses. This one is directly contradictory to the last one I got. Primarily for equestrian and pedestrian users, it sounds like you're cutting out the mountain bike.
We are trying to limit the mountain bikes to the major portion of the trip where we have any horse or equestrian type interfaces. So what we've done, let me see if I can back up to that particular, if I can back up here or not. Let's see here. Give me a second, I'll get there. Kind of show you a little bit better. Cursor here. All right, you see that in front of you now, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you'll, in the blue outlined kind of line, that was one of our original drafts. We were thinking about doing a loop in there. What we backed out of kind of in our design, and this is just one of our initial draft designs, this kind of southeast corner. What we plan to do there is do an alternate in our design or in our bid package. What we'd like to do is work with our local mountain bike group for that particular area, so that we can have kind of that mountain bike or bike horse interface kind of separated. But it would basically put that particular location in that southwestern corner basically dedicated strictly to biking, mountain biking, any of those types of activities in that particular corner. So we are having that in our bid package like that. That's our plan.
So the bottom line is you are, in the current plans, separating the mountain biking activity from the other uses.
Correct.
All right, that's a different understanding than I'd previously been given in response to the mountain bikers' assertion that demand is currently heavier and growing more quickly for the mountain biking use than for the equestrian use.
Yeah, and at this particular location, we don't see that. We don't see as large a use as we do, say, at our Tanglewood mountain bike trails that we have there. So I don't know if it's just, the location of this is just not as conducive to travel or what have you. Hopefully when the Beltway's done, maybe that makes that a little bit better. But, what we'd like to do there is just, it's kind of a safety thing for us when we do any of those types of trails. We know that there will be bikes of some sort, more than likely, on these trails. We would intend to sign them to kind of prevent that. But we wanted to encourage the mountain bikes to be in this one area and provide them with another. I can't remember right off the top of my head. It seems like that's another 7 or 8, maybe 10 acres in that particular southwest corner that they're already using in conjunction with the trails that are already there. So that's kind of our plan, just to kind of have that so we can provide them with something, when we have these trails and when we're in design, doing that.
All right. What would be the avenue for advocates of more mountain bike design trails to pursue at this point?
Right now, I do have a meeting with our local mountain bike group. Forba is their name. I've got that coming up sometime next week. So we are in negotiations and talks with them on what we can do to help them out and help their cause and what they're doing. So that's our initial plan to start talking with them.
All right, final question. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Have we done any public surveys of demand?
We did. It's been several years back for Horizons when we started the development for our 2016 bond package. We did do a public survey, public meetings there at Triad, or at Horizons. And I don't have that in front of me, but we did do that, and there was some indication for mountain bike trails, but the walking trails, those things like that, were higher use if memory serves, and I can get you that information.
So part of the vision, and this goes all the way back to 2016, so, bond projects were moved forward, and, the master planning was part of that, was that, you've currently got mountain bike trails and horse trails at Tanglewood. There are sometimes issues, and so we know for a fact that those two uses can kind of conflict with each other, and the type of trails that equestrian and walkers and runners want is a little different than what the technical mountain bike folks, they're after a much more complex kind of trail system. So, but the idea really emerging was that you've got equestrian trails at Tanglewood, you've got that Horizons was a location that there was a desire for that, and then with the Doral Drive, the agricultural park, we've also got some horse trails kind of anticipated there, and that what you build is really a thread that has an economic development sort of component to it. It's kind of what other communities have done. So that's the thought process.
It would seem that it would be timely, seem to me that it would be timely to do an updated user survey. The suggestion that I hear from the mountain bikers, and I don't have any current survey data on this, is that we're over designing for equestrian use and we're under designing for mountain biker use.
Be glad.
Other questions?
Well, I guess so, again, that we're on this path that we struck out on a fairly long time ago. And we are designing it around equestrian there and at Doral. Obviously a trail's a trail, but you would design them a little bit differently. We would need some direction if we are to kind of change gears, particularly since we're already in design. Are you suggesting that we do a survey to actually change are we doing the survey for the future, or are we doing survey for the projects that we currently have under design? What are y'all's thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, unless we have additional major new parks on the planning horizon, which I don't think we do, if we're going to respond to the possibility of changing public use demand, we would need to consider changes in the context of the facilities that we're currently developing.
That's sort of my question, is whether or not we intend to change gears. That's kind of pun there, but whether we change gears off what we are currently underway with, that's where we would need some discussion, I think.
Well, I have to agree. I do think mountain bike is very popular. I think I know more people that participate in that than anything, but if it would hold up the projects and whatnot, I'd hate to do that. But I am in favor of having more mountain bikes. Do you all have?
Yeah, isn't there plans for up at Tobaccoville, it's a new park up there, that's for some equestrian trails too?
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know how much you got planned there. I don't remember what you may have said, but that seems like some duplication, and that would seem to me like to just relook at that, because now I'm not going to ride the mountain bikes, I can tell you that. Now, a few years ago, I might have done something like that, but not now. But there's people that want to do that. But that would, and that's more, up there is more agriculture oriented. Now, it's, I would just, my thought would be to look at that. I don't, it's hard to see, for me, to see the need for, if you may end up having people that wants to ride the mountain bikes up there, but and I understand the conflicts that can occur, because years ago, when they wanted to ride the motorcycles out there at Tanglewood and the horses, it just didn't work out good. But that'd be a thought that I would have.
Yeah, that's helpful. Okay.
Further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I believe Mark's up next.
Morning, how y'all doing?
Morning, Mark.
All right. Well, this first slide is just like the other ones, the planners, and you can see we got a lot of projects on here. I'm going to touch upon two that we just completed, but I want to thank you all for your support and Commissioner McDaniels for serving on the airport board, and especially James Anderson for helping me out with all these capital projects, mostly on the land side. But a lot of you came out to corporate hangar development. We had 2 corporate hangars built, and we completed them. And you can see there the total budget, $10,300,000. The good news is that one of them is completely full, and we're starting to get others in the other hangar for things like Wake Forest homecoming, and I'm fielding a lot of calls. So good project. This next one, I don't think everybody understood the impact of this project. We closed our primary runway for 28 days, and this is, I know it's an older project from last year, but it was a great project that we had. You know, I can't remember if the number is 55,000 tons of asphalt we put out there, but it's serving our tenants and our users well. And that was a $7.1 million project, and 90% of it came from the state NCDOT. We had it open, we had it closed day and night, and they're working really hard on that. And Sharp Brothers did a great job. We're finally moving forward with the terminal building renovations. I just got a text a few minutes ago that the Avis budget temporary trailers going to be delivered today, and so we're going to get them out of the building and start demolition, and everything's moving forward. We gave them a notice to proceed. IL Longs was a winning bidder, and that's about a $12 million project. We're doing a sort of a shotgun approach with the funding. You got 7.1 in limited obligation funds and about $5 million in that state capital infrastructure fund, which is 100% funded from the state. Rental car and county vehicle fleet washing station. It's in the process of executing the contract for design. That project should go pretty quick construction-wise. If you recall, we're gonna do a couple bays. We'll also satisfy our rental cars, Avis budget, as well as the county fleet. We're worried about a little bit of the lead time on some of the equipment for the car wash. Taxiway Alpha. One of the good things that came out of that ribbon cutting, that picture you saw earlier, was Becca Gallus with the state. She's the new aviation director for the state, and we got her out on the Taxiway Alpha, and ever since I arrived in 2010, this has been a problem. It's been in bad shape. It had failing pavement condition indexes back 10 years ago. And so the FAA has been unable to fund it, but the state is moving forward. She saw how bad a condition it is, and so we're moving forward with that. We got 90% done, design done, and we should be bidding it out this winter, and construction in 2024. So that's about a $6.1 million project. What we're doing is we're resurfacing it in place. We're not moving it. No impact to the neighbors, and our local matches could be around $610,000. Another big project, we got 2 bidders on 4001 North Liberty Street improvements. This was an EDA grant that we got. It's coming a little bit higher than that total budget of $6 million. So we're now going to do some value engineering and have to take out some elements of it or try to find some other funding from the EDA. But that's a pretty major project, and that supports North State Aviation over there. And they're doing well. All their bays are full. Another project, and I was just listening to Chris with the Recs department. We might want to get some of that revenue from bringing people out after this project's done. But we have 525 lights out at the airport. Maybe we can do something like Tanglewood does with their lights and have 54,000 people drive through our airfield. I don't know if the FAA would like that, but we are going to have to put this on hold because we're moving forward that Taxiway Alpha project. So we're going to ask the FAA for funding to make it up for letting us down on the Alpha since the state's stepping forward. But this will probably be third quarter 2025 where this is done. But that's about a $4 million project. 10% is the local match. Taxi lane Lima and ramp has been on our radar for a long time. We are finalizing the environmental assessment. We're going to have some public meetings, but we're looking at completion in 2025. This is to build a ramp for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. That's one of our major market targets. It's will be north of North State Aviation. We've gone through several drafts of the EA, and so we're finalizing so we can get the 401, 404 permits. This is a 100% funded project, $14 million. But it's at the beginning of Brushy Fork Creek, so there's some possible movements of the creek, and so that's why there's so much focus on the environmental assessment. We want to do what's right, and we're looking at, I think, 1.4 million in stormwater and drainage improvements. There'll be like a dry pond, so it doesn't go feed into Brushy Fork Creek really quickly. And so, does everybody know what a dry pond is? Yeah. For those who don't know, it's a pond that takes up a lot of space, but after 72 hours, it fills up after a rain event, then it dries out, because you don't want to have ponds near the end of runways and for all the birds. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul hangar. We have the money in the bank from the state, and we're sort of waiting for that environmental assessment to be done on the associated ramp that I just mentioned. But Samet was a winning firm, and that's a design build, and we're looking at the third quarter of 2025, and that's about a $14.9 million project. That's 100% funded, so that's really great. And then some of the other projects I wanted to touch on really quick. Piedmont Propulsion. They are ready to hire employees, and we put it together a request for qualifications for an engineer. They have this large pit in their existing building, but once we fill that in, they'll be able to hire some employees. I just mentioned Brushy Fork Creek mitigation, or restoring the stream. You've seen a lot of that in the paper. We did get the North Carolina Land and Water Grant Fund for $300,000. Our local match, the city's going to chip in, from my understanding. So that's moving forward. 3820, that's the hangar across the street. It's under design by LS3P and LS3. Yeah, that's right. And so that's moving forward. Engineer and Material Resting System, EMAS for short. This is that, I don't know if you've ever been out at the airport and seen, these are these blocks at the end of runway 15. So if you're landing on runway 15 and you can't stop, instead of going over the hill, you go in this crushable concrete. And so we had this installed back in 2010, and it's got about a 15 to 20 year lifespan. So I just want to put that on your radar. We asking for it under STI. That'd be 100% funded under Prioritization 7, which is several years out. But that's something that needs to be done to keep our compliance. And also landfill redevelopment, just reviewing some proposals. We got 3 proposals asking engineers how they would tackle that project, and we're getting 3 different answers. So it's kind of comparing apples and oranges, and so we're going to come back to you with a plan of action. So that's airport projects that are on the. Here's a breakdown again, once again, of the time frames. You can see there, and I'm here for any questions.
Are there questions? Mr. Bessie?
Yes. What's the timeline again for the Brushy Fork Creek mitigation on the current section?
Yeah, we're Resource Institutes, Damon and I and Mike Bauman reviewed the contract, and it would be design would start right after it gets approval in the contract control system. And let me see here, we got construction for up till, I'm trying to see the handwriting here. Daggone it. Miss Damon, you want to speak up on
the
this?
second quarter of 2025, and then basically they'd be done by the third quarter of 2025. But the work would start, in calendar 24. We're currently, as Mark said, reviewing the contract with Resource Institute, who's actually going to design the work. And so with a budget of about $690,000, the design part is a large percentage of that project, which is about $250,000. And so then the balance would go to do about 2,100 linear feet of creek remediation work.
I'm sorry, how many feet?
2,100 linear feet of creek remediation work.
And just to help me out here, because when I get the questions, their bottom line is, when's it going to start? When's it going to be finished? The current projection is start.
So if we get the contract executed in the next month or so, looks like the construction is slated to finish in the second quarter of calendar 2025 at the latest.
So then the next item you will see will probably be the interlocal agreement with the city, which is currently being worked on, right, Damon? So you'll have that to approve.
We'll also have to work with the attorney's office for easement with the residents along the creek.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mark.
All right. Okay, so we sort of thematically kind of kept into a sort of an economic development focus from the airport to Kyle Haney to talk about some of the economic development projects that are out there.
Good afternoon, or good morning, Commissioners. Apologize. So I did want to just preface this presentation with, I do not have a project planner slide here because these projects are a little bit more conceptual and really looking for Commissioners' feedback. These are really in response to some of the issues we've had around having available economic development sites over the years. So I'll dig into that and certainly looking for feedback from the Commissioners. So the first project that I'll discuss is Tanglewood Business Park. I do want to give a little bit of background on this. It has been a little while since we've gone in depth on this project. I know there are some new commissioners since really we did a lot of the work on this. This is a parcel of land about 170 acres southeast of Tanglewood Recreational Park and right outside the village limits of Clemens. The Board of Commissioners back in 2015 received a briefing from our economic development partners talking about what we need to do to be competitive in economic development, similar to this winter work session where we heard about the lack of available sites. That was really one of the main themes was we are very competitive from a workforce standpoint, from a regional standpoint, but there are limited sites that we can use for recruiting businesses. At the time, the board had identified this parcel that the county owned as the highest and best use as being a business park. That was done, there was a 2009 study that identified this as having a highest best use as a business park, really looking at the fact that it's adjacent to current industrial use and also has the potential for rail access. There's a rail along the perimeter that doesn't go into the site but could be utilized. So that was the suggestion then, and the board in 2015 directed staff to move forward with completing a feasibility study as well as a concept plan on that parcel being used for a business park.
Kyle, take your cursor and show the current industrial park and then maybe where Tanglewood Park is. And
I was going to give a little bit of a guided tour here. So as you see, this red outline is the parcel that the county owns that we're talking about as Tanglewood Business Park. To the northeast here, you have existing industrial along Topsire Drive and Dillon Industrial Drive, as well as some ball fields for Southwest Athletics. Here is Idols Road that borders the property. Across the street, you can see a portion of Tanglewood Recreational Park. I believe that's the par 3 course right there. And then you also have some residential up here, so Clemens West neighborhood up here. In the actual parcel, I was also just going to highlight, here is the temporary construction road. This is a 2021 aerial. So this is a gravel road that was built, and we'll get into a little bit about that. The reason it's curved right here is because there is a wetland that bisects the property. And the last thing I'll mention is right here, there's a stub road that we have across Idols Road that provides permanent access to the property, which I'll get into a little bit as well. Just wanted to give a little bit of layout there. So I did want to go a little bit into the history as far as through the development process, what our goals have been. While we were going through the due diligence on this property, we did get a lot of feedback from the surrounding community stakeholders, as well as Clemens Village Council on their vision for this as well. The goal is really to create an employment center compatible with the surrounding area. So as you saw, there is an industrial park that is adjacent to it, but there's also residential communities that are existing, as well as residential communities that have been approved for development across the street as well, and Tanglewood Park, which is a county asset that we also want to protect as well. The communication that we have had is really, we understand this is a different site than a Union Cross industrial site. This is really kind of a high-scale, high-tech, clean manufacturing research site, research and office site, and that's how we've had it marketed as well. It's currently zoned both residential and general industrial. A portion of the northern portion is general industrial, the southern portion is residential. We haven't rezoned that. However, through the process of development, and really to address some of those concerns from the community, we did actually develop and record protective covenants that are still on that property, limiting the uses. I think there was we didn't want to go through the full rezoning at that time because it gives you some flexibility as far as that end user. But we did want to show that we are serious and really have the intent to make this a high-scale business employment center that fits the surrounding community. Greater Winston-Salem Inc. is marketing the property currently. Once again, they actually email me if they have a potential client and say, is this a good fit or is this not a good fit? And I'd say we probably reject as many as we say certainly submit it for, because we want to make sure it fits with that surrounding community. So as far as the development activity that's going on today, we have done a number of the due diligence items on the property. We have an updated phase 1 study on the environmental wetlands report, geotech surveys, as well as a buildable area map. So pretty far along in that due diligence. We also had the opportunity to partner with the City County Utilities Commission to construct a sewer lift station on that site that provided the potential for future sewer on that site as well as the surrounding sub-basin. And then most recently, we did construct a stub entrance that's completed in the last couple months to the property off of Idols Road. It crosses Norfolk Southern's rail tracks there. It does tie into that temporary construction road, so that provides the access to the property. But it is still largely a wooded site with growth. Just where the lift station and the roadways are the only places that have really been cleared at this point. So looking at what the next steps are here, the county received $2.4 million in the state budget for sewer and water infrastructure a couple years ago for the site. We are currently finalizing some pre-engineering with high-fill engineering to determine the location, sizing, and cost estimate for that sewer outfall line. I actually got a preview of that, I think yesterday, and it's coming in right on that $2.4 million. But this also bring that trunk line, the sewer outfall, up to Dillon Industrial Drive so that the Southwest Athletics would be able to tie in. I know that was through this process we had talked to them about providing sewer access to their sites. And so this plan would do that. So once that's finalized, we can move forward with the engineering and construction of that sewer outfall, which would provide the future access to sewer that site, as well as some of the other industrial sites around it. But certainly what we're looking for is really to determine the strategy for the development. Because of the nature of wanting to have specific end users or limiting the number of end users that we are interested in, we had a concept plan, but we have left it fairly open at this point. We haven't subdivided the parcels. We were looking for the right project, and so we saw that having some flexibility may be beneficial in that way. Do we go ahead and extend the utilities internally, or do we leave some variability in that as well, depending on the end user? And then certainly clearing and grading sites is the other part that would be the next steps here. We have seen that from an economic development standpoint, companies are really looking for sites that are shovel ready. And so with a wooded site, there are some users who are not going to be as interested. There's some who might be more interested in it and retaining some of the natural elements of it. Funds for development, we do still have approximately $360,000 remaining from previous county appropriations to do some development work on the site, as well as we are looking at applying for a Golden Leaf grant around site development, which could fund sewer and water infrastructure within the site, as well as clearing and grading on the site. That's where we are on that. I can go into the next part, or if there are any questions on this particular, we can do that as well.
Questions?
All right.
I think you can continue.
The next portion of the presentation is following up from February, the winter work session, where we discussed the current need for sites. We gave a presentation talking about the constraints for the county around really sewer access and utility access for future employment center development. The staff from Community Economic Development, Planning, Utilities, Greater Winston-Salem Inc. have been discussing this and talking about opportunities to expand that. We did receive $20 million allocation in the state budget for sewer development in southeast Forsyth County, really, I believe, in response to that need. And we've gone back to the southeast Forsyth area plan update, which had identified 5 parcels that are in southeast Forsyth County that are currently not sewered, but would have the potential to be good employment center sites if sewer was provided. So this is a very high level this is from the Southeast Area Plan update. There's a couple sites in blue. Not all those sites that are outlined in blue are were designated for future industrial, but some of those were. Really looking at things that were close to the highway or 311, as well as large tracks in those areas, and close to sewer, although not served by it yet. I did want to highlight one of those 5 areas because this one we're a little bit farther along than the other ones. So the Wahlberg Road area here, you can see on the map, it's outlined in blue, it says AH. That is one of the areas from that plan that was determined would be a potential good employment center use if sewer was extended there. It's adjacent to existing business parks, that Union Cross Business Park. And actually this parcel, this large parcel right here is already developed as a industrial site. Ardaw Metal Beverage Cans put their distribution facility there. There's a large facility there. So it's already started to develop a little bit. It's proximate to Highway 311, I-74, and all of this land is either currently zoned large lot residential or agricultural. The preliminary engineering for a lift station for this area has already been completed. There were 2 options that one would provide sewer access to really just the northern portion here, and then a second option that would provide all the way down to the county line.
Do you mind going back to the, I think it's slide 55? Yeah.
Let me see if
And unfortunately, I'm so sorry that I have my contacts in today, but I still can't really see it. But yeah,
Is this
right
one?
there.
Sorry, I didn't have the numbers.
Right there, that's okay. And you talked about where that employment center could be off 311?
The one that was in the next slide is really right here.
That's Wahlberg,
That's the
right?
Wahlberg. Wahlberg Road is right here.
Right. I wanted to go to it's my right,
Okay.
all the way,
Okay.
where the yellow section is.
Oh, right up here.
Yeah. So in the blue outline, what are those areas again?
So these were special, Chris.
Special land use consideration.
There you, okay.
Okay.
Didn't have the full terminology. Really, they were highlighted, and the ones that we were looking at were really highlighted saying right now they don't have sewer, but they had the potential, if they were sewered,
Right.
to be employment centers, would develop as that. And I think, and Chris, tell me if I'm missing anything, but really they were picked out because they were close to the highway, which we know that's what businesses are looking for,
Right.
as well as there are large parcels there that could be converted easily, large undeveloped parcels that could be converted to industrial uses.
Okay, fair enough, yeah. I just needed to know, you said 311, but I don't know where that area is in my mind.
The county we have a really unique opportunity in front of us that's made possible by the General Assembly's appropriations, $20 million. If all things being equal, what you would see is properties get served really on a demand basis. And so with a developer coming in and being willing to put the infrastructure in to make this happen,
Right.
the place that the board is at right now is if you build it, they will come. And so you've got a very unique opportunity that's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go ahead and strategically put utility services in an area,
Right.
knowing that it will create the combination of that with road infrastructure to really push some development into an area.
I'll do some more research and look into it, but thank you, I appreciate you.
May I ask, in terms of the mapping that you're identifying here, is this part of the current comprehensive plan, or is it?
It was the Southeast Area Plan update. I think it was in 2013, 2014.
I can't remember the exact date, but this is part of the area plan series that was conducted as part of Legacy and Legacy 2030. Of course, we're in the process of doing Forward 2045 today, which will update the comp plan. And as part of that, we will also be looking at growth management, modifications and changes. This area, is currently designated as future growth. And since we have seen a lot of growth in this area, I can't imagine that we would retract from it being a future growth area as we move forward with the comp plan and with the growth management area plan, and then the future small area plan concept that we plan on doing after we finish Forward 2045. Recommendations will become more refined, but again, in the existing plan that is the plan of record, the areas outlined in blue are already recommended for special land use consideration if sewer becomes available.
Right. So basically, that's a yes. It's in the current plan. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to finish up there, what next steps look like on this? So first, accept the funds from the state, receive those funds. Staff is continuing to analyze the highest potential among sites. We've highlighted that Wahlberg Road area just because that is one that we're farther along with. And so that would certainly be one of the highest potential sites. And then, the question that we had in February, which is still the question now around these parcels are really in private land ownership at this point. So you don't control whether or not they're going to be developed or when they're going to be developed. So how do you manage that process? And then certainly when we go through that, bring recommendations to the Board of Commissioners on how to best utilize that $20 million from the state. And that would be through partnerships with the City County Utilities Commission for design, engineering, and development, since they would be the owners of the system.
Question?
Before we leave the area that Kyle's reporting, I would like to ask them some questions about the Tanglewood business. Is this the appropriate?
Yes,
All right.
please.
Thank you. Here we go. This is one of the other, areas that I get, persistent inquiries about. And I know that there are parts of the adjacent communities that would rather it didn't exist. Well, that's, that's kind of beyond the scope of my brief here, but a couple of things that you mentioned I think would be of interest to the adjoining community. The restrictive covenants that are in place.
Yes, sir.
Could you provide a copy of those?
Yes,
that
sir.
I can share with them? Because one of the suggestions that I was getting was, well, why not go ahead and change the zoning to clarify that we're talking about, low emissions, low impact facilities. And I understand the shovel ready
Yes, sir.
issue, but since we don't know what we would be shovel ready for, there might well be uses that would value having some natural terrain, preserved on their campus. It might be more prudent under the circumstances of not knowing what we're going to get there to minimize the pre-clearing to accommodate those users.
Yes, sir. And I'll say, I know a couple of the projects that have looked at the site, and we've had some that were, corporate campuses who were really attracted to the fact that there was natural elements to it. I think ultimately what that will do is just, there are probably more projects that come there and look at it and say, okay, this is going to take longer to get ready. So you're limiting how quickly you're going to be able to dispose of the property to an end user. But certainly that will be attractive to some users.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I would say is there have been lots of kind of fits and starts on trying to nail down what appropriate covenants would be or not be. And so we actually went pretty far down that road, thought we had agreement with the Village of Clemens and, the same council member who sort of navigated that and negotiated it with the board. And it was really a more board directed, kind of backed off and wouldn't support his own recommendation back to the board. It was tied up in, election cycles and all that kind of stuff. And so we've been down that road a little bit, But I think the other thing that has happened is that the types of projects, since we first started talking about it, the idea that you would spin off discovery that's coming up out of Innovation Quarter and some things like that. I mean, I think the nature of the projects have changed a couple of times since we really even started this. And the idea was, if we would have tied it down to what the proposal was, it was probably a blessing that the village council wouldn't agree with it, because frankly, I think there's better projects that may even be more attractive to them that kind of have emerged. So, it's one of those things. It's been a journey. Where we are.
And I understand that. I just, if there is presently a restrictive covenant in place, the specifics of that, I'm sure, would be of interest to folks if they're not aware of it. And it sounds like they may not be aware of it.
They are. That was delivered to the city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think the players have changed some too, and so.
I'm not aware of it, so I'd like to see that.
Right.
We
You
would provide it
do need
to
a
the
copy.
village manager and the village council, but certainly maybe not every person who has interest in the project is aware of it. So we're happy to provide that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the goal, the approach we've used more strategically now is when we get down to being a finalist with a certain project, some disclosure to pull that community, to pull the community in is warranted, because we know there's going to be a lot of interest in that, and but as you know, those are. You get lots of interest. The funnel gets pretty narrowed down at the bottom of it, and what finally comes through are sort of kind of few and far between, particularly when we are as conscientious about the types of projects we want. We've said no to a lot of things. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney, if you all will give us about 10 minutes, we're going to take a break. I'm sorry to hold you all up longer, but we need a break. 10 minutes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you all for allowing us to have a break. Courtney, we're ready if you are, huh?
All right, well, good morning, Commissioners. I am going to wrap up this presentation and give you an update on Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Utilities capital projects. So we have 48 active projects. There's 26 in the design phase, 5 in the bidding phase, and 17 in construction. We have had some struggles with vacancies. Right now, we only have 2 of the 4 positions filled in our capital projects group. We've had a challenge in getting engineers, but as of 3 weeks ago, we were able to hire a new recent graduate, so we now have 3 out of the 4 filled. But that'll help with our workload. But in FY23, we spent $79 million on capital projects, and then we plan on spending around $97 million this year, this FY24. And don't worry, I'm not going to go into detail about all 48, although I find all of them fascinating. I'm sure that others don't share in that excitement. So I'll go into detail on 3 of them. We have the Highway 65 Waterline Extension Project, which has a budget of $3.1 million, Tanglewood Force Main Relocation with a budget of $7.5 million, and then our Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project, which is right around $58 million.
I will ask you about the Highway 65 project.
Okay.
I am disappointed in the date. Since you have filled in some employees, do you think that would move up the date?
Yeah, I'll get to that. I do have a couple slides on that, but I do think that will help us. But we've got some challenges, not challenges, but with federal funding, there are additional requirements for those type of projects, which does extend the schedule out. There's also some permitting issues. We have a stream crossing, which takes some time. But we've also told our engineer that we've hired that this is an important project and we need to keep it moving. So,
well, these folks have just waited so long for water, and their problems are not getting any better. Thank you.
So first up, Highway 65 Waterline Extension. Here is the map that shows you the route of that alignment. It's really from the limits of Rural Hall up Highway 65 and tying into our existing system. So originally this, as you mentioned, this is going on for some time, but it started out as a community development block grant to extend water along Highway 65, and then Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities was going to administer the project and then take it over for ownership and maintenance. In lieu of the CDBG funding, the City of Winston-Salem received the $3.1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds. And again, this does add additional requirements, which does extend the project timeline. We have selected an engineer, Hazen and Sawyer, that's doing the design and the bidding and construction administration services. The survey and geotechnical work has been completed. 90% construction drawings are due in November. Again, I mentioned that we do have some permitting issues. We have a stream crossing, and that's at least 120 days for the state to review those permits. Hopefully, we can get that moving faster, but that could be an issue. We plan on advertising the project in April of 2024, issuing a notice to proceed for construction in August of next year, and then hopefully the construction will be complete in spring, summer of 2025. The next project is the Tanglewood Force Main Relocation. This is we have an existing lift station at Tanglewood Park, and the sanitary sewer force main leaving that station has deteriorated and needs to be replaced. So we reviewed 5 alternative routes and chose the best option. Property owners were notified in June that survey would begin. That survey is complete. 90% construction drawings and specifications are also due in November of this year. Easement acquisition should be complete in spring of 2024, and we want to advertise the project next summer. And this project is funded through our utility fund, which is basically your sewer rates. And this map shows the alignment of the force main. The red line is the existing force main, and the point here on this map, if I can find it. And the green line is the proposed route. So we're following the existing route through the Tanglewood Park, and we'll be coming down along, this is the par 3 course, and along the backside of Clement West to get to Idols Road.
So there will be an easement coming to you from the Utilities Commission around that, and they promised to make the par 3 course way better than it is right now when they get through with it.
We're going to leave it in very good condition, that's right.
It looks like you're following the roads for the most part.
Yeah, so when we come out, we'll follow the existing line where there's an existing easement up to, and it's hard to see on this map, but at this point, we'll come down the property line. That is the park property line, right there at the par 3 course. And then we will go in Idols Road, and it does follow the road, yes.
Do you want to mention the considerations? Because obviously, one option was to stay really in Clemens West subdivision where the current line is, and you can see it kind of squiggles all around back through there, but you might want to mention that.
We had several meetings with representatives from the park, from the Village of Clemens, our staff, utility staff, and we looked at 5 different alternatives and looked at, impact to property owners, cost, length of the pipe. And so this alignment that was chosen is the most economical and the best option. Going back in the existing alignment it's crowded. We know that there's a lot of residential properties in that area. There's also one of the issues that we found, there's corrosive soil in that area that is impacting our pipe, so we want to move it to a new location.
So you'll never get thanked for not going through Clemens West, but you should be thanked for not going through
We
Clemens West.
would certainly hurt if it were
You
the
would.
other way around.
So in the last project I'll update you on is our advanced meter upgrade program. We also have branded this project as Water Savvy, so that's how we're communicating it to our customers. We're going to be installing over 136,000 new smart water meters, as well as 28 base stations. The project will improve data and customer experience. Customers will be able to monitor their usage, pay their bills, and set up alerts for leak through a customer portal. And so far, all the base stations have been installed, and we have currently installed 39,000 water meters to date. And this is just a map of where we've completed the AMI installation. And of course, we're countywide, so it's all over, and customers are being notified before their meters changed out. And then this is the same chart you saw earlier, and I'll stop here if anybody has any questions.
Questions?
Madam Chair, if I may, just for a point of clarification regarding the Highway 65 water line, this board has approved ARPA funding if necessary for that project. Right. And as she's indicated, there's already $3.1 million in that project, and we certainly hope that that will be sufficient. If it's not, we have to be cognizant that the deadline to sign a contract for ARPA money is December 2024. So I believe the current date is August 2024. So that date we really can't afford for that date to slip anymore.
Yes, understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I think this is your slide right then.
So kind of to wrap this part of the morning session up, in terms of what's next, there are clearly a lot of projects that'll be coming in front of the board. There'll be ribbon cuttings and some groundbreakings and all that. Clearly what was presented creates some funding issues. You heard from James that from a budgetary perspective, there's a lot of pressure on cost and a lot of inflation issues. So we've got that part of sort of the challenge. The two things that are really positive that we have, the first one is there's some project savings. And so the courthouse, because of when it was bid, the outstanding construction administration, both from our staff and from Sam at Balfour Beatty, we've got project savings that are coming up out of that. We know $2 million of that we need to handle for the lock project. We're in the process of determining what project reversions there might be from that, and then some other ones. And so we've got that positive. The other one, which was a little bit unanticipated, was through most of this construction, our expectation for interest earnings on idle funds has been very, very low. I mean, for decades, the interest rate market for what we can legally invest in, was in tenths of basis points. So, 10 basis points, 20 basis points, 0.1% interest. The current interest rate environment, in talking with Terry and Lee, is really, we're seeing returns that you saw were a big driver in the budget that you passed in June. That is continuing. So we actually are earning interest on these projects as well. And so what we will bring to you next, if it is satisfactory, is a project reconciliation for the project savings, and then also estimates of interest earned that we can apply to some of this. And what my thoughts would be is we would go ahead and put that into an inflation reserve and be able to move forward on some projects. I mean, the two projects that we know have some pressure on them now is obviously the Tanglewood Clubhouse project, and we're ready to go. We've got the bids in hand. We need to make a decision on that fairly quickly about which strategy we use. So that'll be one of them that comes to you. The Horizons Administrative Building is another one that we've got some pressure on as well. And so just expect really in the next couple of cycles us to bring you something that'll move some dollars into an inflation reserve that hopefully can help us navigate the inflation pressure and get a few projects moving. That sound okay?
I think that's a great idea. Do you all have questions about it? I hope we can move as quickly as possible because of these two projects that are ready.
Right.
So sooner than later.
All right. Well, and then that's all being done in conjunction with closing out the fiscal year and kind of knowing where we are with that.
Are you all fine with that, Richard?
All right. So you'll see that in a agenda cycle. All right. Very good. And so the next is the Axon presentation. I think Randy Hunsucker with the Sheriff's Department, he's going to kind of take the lead on it. He's got some of his colleagues that are here that can talk specifically about the technology as well. So I'll turn it over to Randy.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Vice Chair and board members. As Dudley mentioned at the beginning, we have two Axon's contracts. The big one, which we'll go into details, expires in 11 months. So we have some pretty big decisions to make, and we're not here to ask for anything. We just wanted to get your feedback. It will help us as we prepare next year's budget and talk with Axon as well. And I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves, because if you have questions along the way, some of them may have the answers too. So,
good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen to our presentation. My name is Mike Wright. I'm the Sheriff's IT Manager, and I'm here to answer.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant James Ray with Special Investigative Services Division.
Brian Ray, Good morning. Sergeant Mike Sutton. I'm on the training staff.
Thank you.
and just to back up to make sure everyone is on the same page as to why we have the Axon contract, this is something that's kind of appeared in the last decade, but now they're absolutely essential to law enforcement. And these are all backed up by evidence from the Department of Justice about the transparency. It enhances safety for our officers, enhances safety for the citizens, helps de-escalate events, It helps out even with evidence collection. Improved training is not one that a lot of us think about, but it captures video of officers doing things the best way and not the best way, and those can be replayed. And overall, it helps with public trust tremendously. So there are lots of companies out there, Dudley mentioned, that they're in this market. Custom, Motorola, and Digital Ally all have body-worn cameras and vehicle cameras. Provision and Ricotta have vehicle cameras. Utility just has body-worn cameras. But here's the key point is where we run into problems is the taser. There is only one company in the entire world that provides a taser, and that's Axon. There was briefly a company called Phaser. They had an enforcer product, and it's out of business, and Axon sued them, and the number one person there is in federal prison. So that tells you how that market is. And also behind the scenes here is just the data collection, the data storage, the data sharing. And that's pretty unique to Axon because Axon is the only bundled service provider that has tasers, body-worn cameras, the vehicle cameras, the cloud data storage and sharing, live streaming, the vehicle recognition. All these devices are also connected and they communicate with each other. So for example, if you pull out a taser from its holster, it automatically turns on all the cameras in the immediate area. If one person turns on their camera, all of them in the immediate area turn on as well, which is critical to get different vantage points of a situation. The other thing we see here is that through Axon's evidence.com, it's a single point of access for digital evidence that other law enforcement agencies in Forsyth County are using, the DA's office, defense attorneys, everybody's already using it. So to get away from Axon would be very disruptive from that point. The other thing is the in-vehicle cameras. Again, that would take, we estimate about 6 months to change out every camera in all those cars, and it would require overlapping services, and that of course adds to the cost. And again, this would be very disruptive. And for these reasons, and there are more we'll get into, the Sheriff's Office wants to continue using Axon Enterprises because, as I mentioned, all the devices are connected, they interface with CAD, and everyone's already using it as far as digital evidence, and it's all a seamless process. The second contract we have is in our suspect interrogation, suspect interview room. And again, a seamless process from the moment something is recorded in that room to it's in the courtroom. So Axon, we have 2 contracts. The big one ends September 30th, 2024. And that includes all the body-worn cameras, the vehicle cameras, and the data storage, access and sharing through evidence.com. It also includes TASER 7s. The Cradle Points is the vehicle connectivity, the automated vehicle locator, networks security, the router, that type of thing. We've not amended that contract since January 2022, so we're really behind in doing that. We're sort of waiting for, hopefully, to do something with this contract a little early. It hasn't worked out that way because it's very complicated. And then we have the suspect interview room. That contract is standalone, and it aligns with the fiscal year, and that ends June 30, 2027. We have non-systems there. They're utilizing Criminal Investigations Division and the Sex Offender Registry. And under the other bullet points there, you can see the number of users, devices, and licenses we have right now with each of those areas. Right now, in the current fiscal year, you are paying the general fund. The general fund is paying $774,483. That's a net expense. The gross contract for the big one is $905,000. And we charge some of that back to the municipal contracts and the SRO program. So they pay for that portion, which makes the net expense for the big contract $737,000. The suspect interview room system is $37,000. And a lot has been said, and probably many of you are wondering, the cost of this contract has really gone up over the years. And that is true, and there's reasons for it. We want to make sure we communicate that clearly. The first is it's been a long time. That was 7 years ago when we first entered that Axon contract. And that was $450,000 that year. just adjusting that for inflation in today's dollars, that's $575,000. But we won't talk about the inflation, just want to mention inflation is an issue we're seeing. But the main reasons it's increasing or has increased is just the size of the agency. We went from just a handful of SRO officers, handful of schools, to we have over 24 schools now, 39 SRO positions. We took on the Animal Services Division. The community policing contracts have increased, particularly Rural Hall's added somebody, Louisville's added position, and Clemens has added folks. And then we've added some specialized teams, the Highway Intervention Team and the Tactical High Risk Apprehension Team. And so you see there the reference notes. We came back to the board on those dates. You consider we transparently showed the impact of the 5-year payment plan. Second thing is we added the suspect interview room system in May 2027, and that went to the board in September 12, 2016. And then we added switched to Axon for the in-vehicle cameras. That contract began January 2018, and we came to the board that fall before. Looking at some of the what it might cost if we switch to other vendors, it's really hard to nail down, but one of the first things we looked at was keeping the Axon cameras and go to this phaser product, but just scratch that one because you can't buy the phaser because of the cease and desist order on that, and it's out of business. You could do Axon for the tasers and go with some of the other non-Axon products. It's really difficult to narrow down the exact cost of those things, but we estimate that it will cost somewhere between $5.8 million to $8.2 million. And a lot of that has to do with data storage issues, overlapping contracts. We would have to add positions under some of those options because they don't manage the data. And Axon has provided us a 60-month estimate, $5.88 million, and includes a couple options that we want to talk with you about today and sort of see how you feel about it. One's the TASER 10 product, which is a new version of that. The body-worn camera live streaming. It's actually live streaming in the car, too. The license plate recognition, and then plus we need to adjust the number of devices and licenses. We're a bit behind in doing that. And those are the estimates used for that thing there. But things to think about is with Axon, if something's lost, stolen, damaged, they replace it. That's not the case with these other companies. For Axon to continue, we don't have to add any new positions. The other solutions, in many cases, require an on-premise solution for that data storage. And we would have to have IT personnel because evidence.com is more than just the data storage. It actually sorts it, titles it, everything is organized. We don't have to do anything extra with that. And just you get 40 to 45 terabytes of information and data, that's a lot. Impossible to manage without additional IT personnel. Plus to migrate the data that we have at evidence.com would cost $1 million for storage and servers. Can't escape that. And plus we'd have to, for just the tasers, we'd still have to keep evidence.com because only on evidence.com is the taser deployment data stored and the statistics that we have to have. So there's no way around it. Axon is going to be the cheaper, better bet, and that's who we want to continue with. And also, as we mentioned, those other non-Axon products don't communicate with each other. There's no, if you to pull out the taser, the other cameras won't come on automatically, which is not helpful. And I've already mentioned the vehicle camera change out. The other thing is to think about is training. If we change other devices, it would require agency-wide retraining, and that's a lot more difficult than you might think it is, and that would be very disruptive. So that's why we want to continue with Axon. And so here's what I wanted to bring up the others here to talk about some of these other services the Sheriff's Office would like to add. We had some free trials of the live streaming and the ALPR, and it was very popular apparently with the folks. And in one place in particular, so I'm going to let Ron Ray come up first and talk about that. James Ray, Lieutenant, will talk about the ALPR, what that is. Those two were ASL requests from the last budget process. And then Sergeant Sutton will talk about the TASER 10. So,
Morning, County Commissioners, thank you. Just to briefly talk about the live streaming and another feature that our body cam does is it shares our location with supervisors and any other officers that may have access, our dispatchers. So they're immediately able to see, once we exit our vehicle, exactly where we are. As far as my job title is K-9 handler, oftentimes at night, I'm going through the woods with my dog, either looking for somebody that has run away, that is lost, that has walked away, or possibly suspected of a crime. Once we leave our car, they have very little knowledge of where we are. If we're in a rural part of the county, we have almost no reference points, maybe a creek or a random utility pole. This takes all of the guesswork out of where we are. And the easiest way for us to either exit our position or the best way to get maybe medical resources where we are. It allows us to shift perimeters. Overall, just officer safety has been much better when they're able to see our exact position once we're out of our vehicles. And the fact that our supervisors are able to live stream our cameras while we are doing something, it helps them see exactly what we're seeing while not being on the ground right there with us.
So where does that live video feed? Does it go, does it go into the Arctic?
It goes to, I'm not positive, I believe there are supervisors, dispatchers, and other people that are granted permission that can access that live stream, and they just watch it right there on their laptop. Like my lieutenant, if I was in the woods running a track, my lieutenant would be able to log into his computer or log into Axon and see what I'm seeing in my camera.
Okay.
It goes essentially to the Axon cloud.
Okay. So basically, everybody anywhere, if you're granted access, can see it. Exactly. Okay. Got it. And it's off your body-worn camera and your taser?
And vehicle camera.
And vehicle camera. So all three. Okay.
The great thing is everybody already has cameras, so it's just adding the service.
Where's your body-worn camera?
Right here, sir.
Okay.
So I do have a question about
Yes,
the
ma'am.
camera. So do you have the ability to turn that on and off?
The camera, yes, ma'am. I can, it's powered on once I start my shift.
Yeah.
And then I can either manually start I can't start a live stream. Only supervisors can do that. I start the recording, or I stop it, or if my lights are turned on, or like was said before, if somebody's taser is activated or something like that, my camera will automatically start recording.
Yeah, so that's another leading question for me. With you having the ability to turn it on and off, what's the policy behind that? I mean, how do you make the determination to turn it off? And then when do you make the determination to turn it back on?
So any
Looks like
calls
you may
for-
be getting some help from someone.
Any calls for service, I have to start, any calls for service or citizen contact. By policy, we're required to start recording.
Yeah, so
And
if
then
you're
at the end of that
engaging
contact,
me,
we can
you
stop
could
it.
Stop it, okay.
The only other time we can turn it on and off is for, if we're on scene or something and officers need to step aside and talk about something that's going on administratively, we can go to the side and the officers are allowed to speak. You know, we just say, turning it off for administrative reasons, and then we go back into the scene and we can start recording again.
Every one of those actions is logged.
Correct.
And the camera is actually always recording. The camera is on his body. It's always recording. Tapping the button essentially creates.
So I guess, so that I'm more clear, when you turn it off, that means that there's no transmission or there's no evidence of what's being conveyed or communicated, right?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you.
Other questions?
Just
Mr.
one
Smith?
question, ma'am. I don't recall you're specifically mentioning what system the Winston-Salem PD uses. Is it the same system for their body and vehicle cams?
I'm not
not sure about their vehicle.
It's their Axon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Deputy.
you.
Lieutenant Ray will talk about the ALPR.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Talking a little bit about the ALPR, as I said, I'm the lieutenant over Special Investigative Services Division. So I'm over the JIT team, the THRAT team, the interdiction squad, as well as one of our narcotics squads. With my current assignment with JIT and THRAT, we spend a lot of time doing traffic enforcement and criminal enforcement through traffic enforcement. And as we all know, with the increase in technology, our cell phones and everything else, divided attention is very important for us. So every time we want to run a license plate, we actually have to look down at our computer and take our eyes off the road, take our eyes off the surroundings, and try to run that license plate to get that information back. And it doesn't always come verbally back to us or through the computer. We actually have to take a second to look down again and read. So that divided attention can cost somebody a life, right? We get into accidents because we're not seeing what the people in front of us are doing, or we don't see when somebody runs out or something like that. So it can be very detrimental to us and to the community. This new LPR system scans every license plate that's in front of the vehicle. So that allows us to see the stolen license plate, the stolen cars, silver alerts, amber alerts. All those things are automatically read out to us, so we don't ever have to take our eyes off of the road.
Questions?
Basic question, ALPR is an acronym for?
Automated license plate reader. I think, is that correct? It's automated or? Yeah.
Thank you. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
I just want to say, when law enforcement's in the family, obviously, the older brother, I don't know, is there any competition between the two brothers? This is related. Yeah. Deputy Ray told me that Lieutenant Ray was his older brother. So anyway, but thank you for both your service and the family value there. So.
And so the live streaming is about 80,000 more a year. The automated license plate reader is about 75,000 more annualized basis. We did not ask for a TASER 10 upgrade, so Sergeant Sutton's going to tell you about the TASER 10 and why we like that. The two graphics, the one on the top is a graphic of the ALPR, and the bottom is the TASER one.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So a part of, as you can see in this list of items, is the TASER 10 upgrade. So the current platform that we have is actually the TASER 7, which a few years ago we were allowed to upgrade the TASERs from the previous model. And the upgrade from one model to the other is, in a sense, officer safety, right? With the new TASER 10 versus the current model that we are operating right now is the operating distance. All right. Operating distance almost doubles from one model to the other, from 25 feet to 45 feet. With the new TASER 10, as you can probably guess in the name, it's 10 for a reason. It actually has 10 sets of probes actually on the end of the TASER. The change with that versus the current system we have only has 4. But with the added probes, if by some chance we need to have a use of force, which every law enforcement encounter, we don't want to have use of force. But if it does happen, we want to have the most effective tool. And with the TASER 10 is if we have to use our TASER and we use force, that we have the option of shooting additional probes one at a time versus 2 probes hitting as far as a suspect. All right. So also with the new TASER, the current model has issues with submersion into water. If an officer were to jump into a pool to save a life and then get back out, that TASER would have to be taken out of service. The current TASER, the new TASER, can actually be submerged in water and then actually be used right afterwards. So those are a lot of the changes to the new TASER. Any questions as far as on the new TASER?
Questions? Thank you. I might say, Randy, that having the folks come in who actually perform these duties is very helpful to us.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Did you have any Go ahead.
I have one more thing to share. Randy touched a little bit earlier on the importance of having Axon and how a lot of law enforcement agencies are using it and the ease of sharing information. Recently, a individual in New York committed a homicide. He was down here in Winston-Salem hiding. Members of SISD apprehended him, and it was the ease of just clicking a button, and the prosecutor's office up there in New York had our entire case file, our body-worn cameras, our reports, our interview rooms from our CID offices, everything that they needed to continue their prosecution and do it expeditiously. They didn't have to wait for any reports to get sent through the mail or for detectives to come down here and get anything. So the ease of keeping everything in Axon and evidence.com is really good for us as well, and the surrounding agencies and as far away as New York as well.
I know, and I probably should leave this alone, but I still have a little angst in my belly about that, the camera, being able to turn it on and turn it off, and I'm not sure if that's your wheelhouse. Yeah, so if you guys can kind of help me, I don't know if there needs to be a policy around this, but how can you comfort me in knowing that when that camera is turned off, there's something that we could capture in knowing what was said and what wasn't said? Because he's saying that it goes someplace, but it sounds like it's turned off, and plethora of things can happen. So thank you. I apologize for coming back to this again. I'm so sorry.
I can actually talk about the Sheriff's Office policy on actually videotaping encounters. So a part of the policy for body-worn cameras and also our fleet cameras is if we have any type of interaction with the public, the cameras have to be activated during the whole entire interaction as far as with members of the public. Now, there is also a few other features that are available. There is a up to 18-hour readback for what they call buffering, which is not necessarily recorded, but we can extract as far as the data out of the camera if need be, if there is some type of allegation that has been claimed that we do not have actual recorded video coverage.
Right. Can I ask you a question about the buffering system? So that buffering, what does that look like? Staticky or?
No, actually what it is there would not be any audio in there, but there would actually be video that was actually there. So, and what I mean by buffering is basically that camera is just sitting there, just recording as far as video. And then once you actually hit the activation, which is a double tap as far as on the button, then it would turn it on. And then you would have full audio. Now, any type of interaction, if we had, like, say, for instance, a very quick interaction with a member of the public, we didn't get a chance to activate our camera, and we drew out our taser, and that tripped as far as the activation, then the actual video footage would go back 30 seconds prior to the actual activation of the camera. And as Wright said, is all of that is done through an audit trail as well. So a part of the evidence.com database is it will tell you activation, date and time as far as the activation, and it also will go into what caused the activation. Was it a manual turn on? Was it an event of a taser being drawn or anything of that nature? So the system is very pretty advanced as far as that it will tell you as far as everything on that. And it'll also tell you if an officer turns their camera off, that they turn their camera off, or if the battery died.
That makes me feel more comfortable that it's continuing to record, but we still got to work through the video, the vocal part of it. But nevertheless, thank you so very much for the
So let me make sure, but the live streaming is actually where a supervisor can cut the camera on.
They can't cut the actual camera on. What that feature is if the cameras are actively recording, then they can actually live stream the
They just
footage.
pull the video in.
The only thing that is automatic all the time without the camera being on is the GPS, where that person is.
And taser is automatic.
Taser's automatic. If you turn the taser on, it's going to turn all the cameras on in the area.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'm okay.
Basically, an overall question please. With the increasing frequency of hacker attacks for various systems, what are the defenses, what are the vulnerabilities for this system in terms of protecting the data, protecting access to the data, ensuring that, the design features continue to work?
It's a really good question. So the axonevidence.com is actually hosted in the Amazon Web Services government cloud, which is fully U.S. continent-based and CGIS compliant and certified. So it's backed up in multiple locations across the country. Some of the data is stored in multiple locations at the same time. That's another great advantage. I know I don't want to take a lot of your time. Randy mentioned the cost of switching to an on-premise solution. That's why it's so high. We would have to have those servers in storage in triplicate, essentially. We have to have a backup and then an off-site backup and then the ability to catalog it all. So yeah, this is specifically CGIS certified storage in the Amazon cloud. Axon partners with Amazon Web Services for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And we'll come back to this slide last, but I wanted to share, we did obtain just a informative quote from Axon, but also looked at, that cost compared to a bid out process. So we learned recently, actually, that in 2022, the Charlotte City Council awarded a unit price contract to Axon. And that contract was competitively bid on behalf of itself and all local governments as per the competitive bidding laws of the state of North Carolina. So you could piggyback off that contract. And so we took a look at the numbers that are on that Charlotte Alliance purchasing agreement compared to what Axon is telling us. And so you can see here for all the major expenses, the per user per year cost is quite a bit lower than the one that was competitively bid out. And over a 5-year period, that'd be about $2.1 million in savings. So we're pretty confident about the quote that we have from Axon. So that's the last slide. There was one other slide past that. It was probably jumped on the gun too fast on that one, so you can just probably put a big X through that one. But we mainly wanted to get your sort of thoughts. How do you feel about, is there any of these add-on services, like the live streaming, the ALPR, the TASER 10 that you feel that you like, or is there something you definitely don't like, or anything else we can look at as we're talking with Axon? We'd love to hear your feedback. That would help us out tremendously.
Yeah, and I was just going to give a little background. So we wanted to go ahead and do this presentation in advance for two reasons. One is a direction is going to be necessary as we head into next year's budget, so that's going to be part of it. And then the other issue that we've got to get dealt with is obviously we're in a formal purchasing limit with this, and so we are going to need to work with the attorney's office to determine, what those requirements will be. Obviously, it would normally need to be formally bid, whether or not there's, you could do some type of sole source. That has some exposure, obviously, because you've got competition. It's just, it's just a, is it of like kind and quality and those sorts of things. So anyway, we've got some work to do on that. But we want to get this
to follow up on that, typically for a piggyback, it needs to be bid within the previous 12 months. So we can follow up and see which direction we want to go in.
That's right. And I know, Randy, other agencies are going to be bidding it as well during the time. So watching what that looks like is important. You do get to see the annualized cost of this technology on an officer, even at the lower numbers, about $16,000 a year. And so this is a incredible investment in what you are equipping an officer for. And I think that's something you need to understand, because when we go to Clemens or Rural Hall or somebody who's buying community policing services through us and they see a number that's so high in terms of what it costs to equip an officer, it's not just the vehicle, it's not just the salary, it's not just all of that. It's a lot of technology. So.
Well, I think we need to wait and get input from the staff before, I don't think any of us are ready to look at you today and say, oh, yeah, we want all of this. So we'll get follow-up from the staff, and then we'll have a better idea.
Yeah, I'm always going to be respectful to staff and their research. However, I know that the sheriff has needs, so I'm glad that you're here to share what those needs are, and we're going to try to do our best to research to resolve. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I did have one quick question. For the ALPR, have you observed its actual performance in other jurisdictions?
I can just say one quick thing on that. Yesterday, we were able to locate a missing person in Clemens.
The ALPR, the automated license plate reader.
Yes, sir. We were able to locate, the Clemens officers were able to locate a missing person. So with the ALPR system, you're able to toggle a switch that allows, when it receives a hit, to pop up to the front of your screen, so it's front and center. And I believe yesterday that's what happened, and they were able to locate a missing person in a gas station parking lot.
So you've got this system deployed now?
It's on just a test. They let us try out for
Okay.
a period of
All
time.
right. Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, again, I'll say thank you to all of you for being here and sharing your experiences with us. It's extremely helpful in our decisions. Thank you. So I think that's it for the morning session, is it not? Okay, so we will adjourn until 2 o'clock. Thank you all for being here.
Is that all? Good.